Hello guys, welcome back to the Beastie Room. Now we're going to have a little update today on something that's been asked for many times, and that is an update on our mossy frogs. Now you would have remembered way back last year we actually acquired 12 adult mossy frogs, and we'd not had mossy frogs before. We used to keep an awful lot of amphibians and bits and pieces, but the mossy frog was one that we never actually managed to get hold of. And that was because they were always really expensive. And we just wasn't in a means to be able to afford them, really. That's the bottom line. We couldn't afford them. And then we came up last year, we had the opportunity to buy up 12, well, I think half of them were adults and half were like sub-adults. And we bought them as a group. We took the lot, and we set them up. And you would have seen that we done a vivarium build for them and what have you. And then we were going to attempt to breed them. Now, with the mossy frog, much of the information that was out there on the internet, which is exactly what we had to do, we had to go and research our frogs and find out what was the best way of keeping them. Much of that information was really sketchy and quite contradictory as well, which we often find on the internet. You know, people disagree on how things are kept. So you have to pick up the bones of all these different places of research and try and make sense of it all and make it work in your situation, in your environment. And that's exactly what we done. You know, we set our frogs up and then we went ahead and tried to breed them. This was not without its problems. We did have some problems and we managed to work our way through them to what we've got today. So without further ado, what we're going to do now is we are going to pop over and have a look at one of the tanks that we keep our adult frogs in for the purpose of breeding. So they spawn and what have you within this tank. So right, let's go over and have a little look at those. Well, here we are in our second room, and this is where we keep our adult mossy frogs. This is where we keep our breeding tank, and that is this here. Now, as you can see, we've got a plant in here which pretty much takes up most of that, and then we've got water here filled up only a couple of inches. They don't need a lot of water. Now, one thing you will notice here is it's absolutely filthy dirty. It is filthy dirty. Now, we saw on the internet that some people were saying they like nice, clean, filtered water, like a mountain stream. What we found is that the tadpoles do not do well in filtered water. They don't like it. So the dirtier the water, it needs to have quite a bit of tannin in it. It needs to be old, really old, almost stagnant water. And they thrive in it, absolutely thrive. So what we do is we throw bits of moss, leaves, all this sort of stuff inside the water, and we just let it, basically break down. The water turns brown. We actually get it to a point where the water is so dark we can't see tadpoles in it. It's really murky. You'll have to forgive that cricket. He's driving me nuts. He's like, Richie, right in my ear here. And this is because we throw crickets in here and we allow them to hunt for their food. We've also got it to the point now where camera lady can come up and she can hand feed these guys and they will come out and take food from her fingers. So they do get very friendly. Now, I don't know if you can see, we've got a frog over the back here. There's still, I think we've got 11 in here. We lost one adult frog. I don't know if we can get some light on him. Look at that. Absolutely amazing. Now you'll also notice down in the bottom there, we can see there, they're down on that piece of log. You can see them in there. Very cool. It's difficult to focus when they're in such close proximity like that. Let's get him in the middle of the lens. Zoom in.
Yeah, sorry guys, I can't. Yeah.
So yes, they're literally, and the idea is being in here, as you can see, it's very difficult to film. But the idea is it's so busy in here, very, very thick. I'm not sure where we're going now. Oh look, there's another one. And you'll also see in there that many of the frogs here, in the daytime, they actually sit out of the water. And what they do here is we've got branches here that we have that are in the water, and then they come out of the water. And what happens is, you can't see because it is so filthy dirty, but they lay their eggs under here. So they lay their eggs out of the water, and then they sit there. Now these eggs are in the open air. So what happens is, come an evening time, when the frogs are naturally active, these guys are nocturnal. So what they do is they lay their eggs underneath the branches, and then they go away. They leave them there all day long, and they don't do anything with them. And then of an evening, they come out and they collect water up on their bodies and within their back legs, and they climb back up, and then they literally kick water off like this, and they cover the eggs, and they re-moisten the eggs during the night. And then the same thing goes on night after night after night. And then eventually, the tadpoles, they grow within that egg, and then eventually they get big enough and they break out and they drop into the water, and then they disappear. And then they are fully on their own at that point. They don't do anything else. They get no other parental care whatsoever. So once they hit the water, they're on their own. Now when they first hatch out, they are literally this big. They are only tiny, tiny little things. So they're probably less than a centimetre. By the time they grow their legs, they can be getting on up to 3 inches. They are huge, massive, massive things. Now, when we're feeding the tadpoles, what we do is any insects that are in the main enclosure that die off, they fall into the water, the tadpoles will then eat those crickets. Look, here they come.
It's dinner time.
They think I'm camera lady, and they think it's food time. Look at them all, look, they're all coming up now. Look, to have a little look. Look at that. You see how friendly they are? Now this is in the middle of the day, and they're already thinking it's dinner time.
Leg going.
Look at them amazing eyes, get a lovely close up of them eyes. Aren't they beautiful? Now they're actually looking rather dark at the moment, and that is because we've woken them up. In the night time they go a lovely emerald green colour. Really, really pretty. Fantastic looking frogs, they really are. And they get surprisingly big. These are full grown adults, but they're much, much bigger than you would first anticipate. This one's just about hanging on. There he goes. So yes, as we were saying, the tadpoles, when they're growing, they will eat the food that the frogs miss. So any crickets and things, roaches that die in the water, the tadpoles will come along and eat them. That also helps to with the water, because they love this dirty water. They really seem to do well in it. And this is how they grow. So we also feed them as well. We feed them a green rapashi, which is often used for dark frogs, which are good for the tadpoles. You know, that's what people feed their dark frog tadpoles on. So we put that in as well. But we try and give them as much insect-based food as we possibly can. It's the best way. These are all coming up now. Look, look at them all. Yep, they're all coming up. Aren't they amazing? Fabulous looking things. They don't care who they stand on. Look, he's like, get off my head. Now that noise you can hear is them calling. Aren't they just wonderful? Absolutely amazing. These, I must admit, have been one of the best investments that we've gone for. They really are so entertaining. And what we're doing at the moment is we made this enclosure up so that we can we can breed them in here and we can build up our stocks a little bit, because what we want to do is set up a large group, and once we've moved house, we got plans on a nice big exhibit, which is hopefully going to really show them off to their best, because we're not really seeing them at their best like this. So we're hoping that we'll get a nice big exhibit and we can put them in there and have it lit properly and everything else, and it will really look a treat. But that's to come. That'll be something to keep an eye out for. So then, what we're going to do now is we are going to go back and we are going to look at our grow out tank, where we keep the tadpoles. Once they get very big, we catch them out of here and we put them in our grow out tank, and that's where our young baby mossy frogs grow up before we move them out to their individual enclosures. All right then, let's go and have a look at the babies. Right, hello guys, welcome back into the beastie room number 1. This here is our grow out tank. Now this is the one that we very first set up to hold our adult frogs, and then we took them out of here and we changed them into a larger exoterra, because it became apparent very quickly that there just wasn't enough room for those big frogs. Bearing in mind we had 12 of them in there. Now this is where we catch the big tadpoles from the breeding tank. Once they're really big, we catch them and then we pop them in here, and then they grow up in here, and then they metamorphose into froglets. And as you can see, we got some here. There's a youngster there, and you can see just how small they are when they first come off. This is not very old. One there's another one up here, and you can see they're down in the water. There's also a absolutely huge tadpole down in the water there as well. And we've got the one below it is on the move, on the branch there. There he is. Very cool little frogs these are. You can see the big tadpole there. He is literally, see him there? One very huge tadpole. And there's also a smaller one up above him. That's him there. You can just see that little tiny one. He just took a gulp. Oh, that was a big one. Just took a big gulp of air. And you can see the frogs as well in the background. When they're young like this, they often spend time sitting in the water and they just hang out there. Now there's actually, over this side, look down in the water, we can see one there that's just metamorphosing. That's it. We're on him. He was there. Now you can see a tiny tadpole there and a really big one. And then below him, there's a froglet that's still got his tail. We can see if we can't chase him out again in a second. Now as you can see in here, we can look at the water and you can see all the detritus in the bottom. This is what our tadpoles are feeding on. They're eating all of this stuff down here, and they grow really well on it.
It's not toxic though.
No, this is not toxic. So what we're looking at here is the water in the room evaporates, so we keep it topped up, and we used a distilled water that we leave standing, so that does a really good job. Makes a nice clean fresh water, and basically they do really well. The cleaner we've kept them, the worse they've done. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to try, see if I can't get the one that's got, here we go, here he is. See him down there now. There's one that's still got his tail, and you can see there he's still got his tail, but he is, to all intents and purposes, a frog. Oh, there he goes.
Dave.
He's gone. We can get him back. Buried himself in the muck. There he is. Can you see him? So you can see he's still got that huge tail. That tail would be absorbed. That is our little froglet's food. He will absorb that and become a tiny, tiny frog. Absolutely incredible. Now inside this enclosure here, if we pan out, we can see what's going on in here. We've got water-based in the centre, and then we've got land all the way around, and we've got these mossy branches. And our frogs generally will sit up on these branches during the daytime, and they sleep up there. So they do their thing. We've got the plant in there as well, which gives the froglets cover, because we have to be careful. The larger froglets will, in turn, try and eat a smaller one if they're not kept well fed.
By accident.
Yeah, they just grab things and they'll feed on them. So what we do is we keep them, we put crickets in here, and we can see one here. There's a cricket there. And what we do is we douse these in calcium, sort of every other feed. And that gives our froglets all the necessary things that they need to grow nice and strong. And they do really, really well in this setup. So what we've been doing is we've been hanging on until we sort of like thought that we've actually mastered the art of actually breeding these guys, and then we could report back. And this is the results. Very, very pretty. Very, very pretty. They're everywhere. Now I think at the last count, I think we had 19 or 20 young frogs in here, and that's not to mention the tadpoles that are in metamorphosis at the moment. So they will be going. There, see, there's quite a large one there. There's quite a large one there. And you can see the difference. There's a small one just in front of him.
Mate got it.
Yeah, they're chasing them. Camouflage on these guys is phenomenal. Really, really cool. Right. There we go. So that is our grow out tank for our mossy frogs. And we're breeding these now on a really regular basis. So we've found that much of the information that we was getting on the internet doesn't seem to hold much water, if you like. It just doesn't hold much ground. One of the things that we was worried about was that it might be too warm in our room for them, because everything was stating that they like it on the colder side. We found this to be the opposite. We found that actually the grow out tank is in the beastie room. It's 80 degrees in here, and they flourish in here. Absolutely flourish. They grow really well, really quickly. And the breeding side in our other room, it's slightly cooler in there, but not a great deal. And we even had adults in here. The only reason we took them out of here was because we found it upped the humidity in here a little bit too much, and we were starting to get problems with some of our spider sacs. So we decided to, take them out because the humidity was causing too many problems. This tank on its own has not been a problem at all. But when we had like 3 tanks in here, just a bit too much water going on. So we moved them out. Now, so we've basically, to round it up, we found that the dirtier the water.
You say dirty, it's not with V and P.
No. It's more of a natural water. So it's got plenty of rotting vegetation in the bottom. And then it's also got the rotting carcasses of things like roaches, crickets and stuff like that. And it's very important that our tadpoles get them for food. They are carnivorous at the end of the day. Now, We did on one occasion see a large frog eat a large tadpole. That was a little bit shocking. We wasn't expecting that.
I think it might be an accident.
Yeah, it might well have been an accident, but once it's got it in its mouth, it don't let go. So that was that. But we found this is the best way to rear the tadpoles. When we had them in clean water, we tried them in still clean water. They didn't like it. They would survive for so long and then they all perished. Yeah, we had them like taking on too much oxygen, so they ended up bloated. That killed them as well. We also tried them on filtered water where we had an aquarium filter in there. They didn't like that either. They seemed to like a standing water with all the vegetation and all the rubbish that goes with it. The only thing to be careful of is obviously our frogs defecate and urinate in the water. So it's important that we keep it topped up and we keep checking it out. So every now and again, we will literally siphon out maybe 60% of this water. When it gets a little bit too smelly, gets a bit too stinky, we siphon it out and then we replenish it with fresh water. And then we constantly top up with fresh water all the time because of evaporation. So that in turn also keeps it diluted. But it's not tap water, no. No, it's water that we've left standing. We keep it standing in tubs and that helps any chlorines and everything else dissipate out of the water and it keeps it nice and clean. The other thing that we did try, talking about water, is we tried RO water from our local fish shop and they didn't do well in that either. And that, I believe, is because RO water has got no mineral basis to it. There is nothing in it. It's sort of like, it is pure, almost pure water. There's no goodness in it. There's no trace elements in it. These guys need them trace elements if they're going to produce good, strong, healthy froglets, as we've seen in here. So it's a very, very interesting thing. And this is why it's important that you always, do your research, find out who's doing what, follow a little bit of your own gut instinct and try things that you think are actually going to work. And we found our own way. And the way that we're producing these goes against most of the information that we got about keeping mossy frogs. So, there's always a way around things. Right. You're going to have another quick look before we wrap them up. They are just fabulous little things. They are so interesting. And they do make really, really good exhibits, especially when they're young. And as we were saying earlier on, we are actually going to set up a large enclosure for them. We're thinking of having one purpose built, and then we can really, really show them off to their very, very best.
Keep going back to him because he's just there.
Absolutely lovely. Very, very cryptic pattern to them. Really are cool. We look down there. They're all lining up now. All ganging up now. Absolutely beautiful. Yes, we do actually spend an awful lot of time just watching these guys. They are very, very cool. Right then. Well, hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight as to how we keep these amazing frogs. They really are super, super cool. And hopefully if there's any of you guys out there that are thinking about getting some, this little video will help you in taking care of them and what's worked for us. We've been lucky. The success we've had with these is proof in the pudding. And Yeah, we are very, very pleased. Right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little video. Something a bit different from the Beastie Room and something that's been asked for many, many times. People really wanted to have a recap on these guys, and we've been waiting until we were successful. There's no point reporting on anything unless we're successful. So now we've got things down to a T. Here's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget, be calm, be gentle, and love your spiders and your mossy frogs.